Hi folks, Josh Knight the First here with another episode of Exade Replay, coming to you with episode 36 of the series. Let's get right into it. So we've made it here to the episode that comes in every Kamen Rider series where we get to see the final form show up. Now there's going to be a lot leading up to the debut of the final form, but first let's talk about what happened at the beginning of the episode. Now it goes without saying there at the beginning of the show, in the opening, yes, Kiriya is back in the opening, thank you. I have good hopes for this episode. I mean, that's kind of odd to say because I already watched the episode, otherwise I couldn't do this video. You know what, forget about that, let's just talk about the show. So at the outset we see that the Genmu Corporation is starting to go ahead and address the fact that people might not want to play Kamen Rider Chronicles so much anymore. So the way they combat this is by going ahead and putting out commercials, specifically citing that there's going to be a special game event where the ride players will be able to combat Kronos directly. This of course having the idea that if you can defeat him, which of course you won't, then you might be able to have the chance to go ahead and reclaim the lives that were lost due to game over. Now I do appreciate that in order to make people buy into the show, you're showing random people of all different walks of life, you know, parents, girls, guys stuck in their rooms, you know, playing video games. All these different types of people have been affected, have had people die or really disappear because of Kamen Rider Chronicle, and you see all of these people hitting buy at the same time. Now it's good that you're being more immersive like that, Toei, because I want to see this world be believable, because up to this point, other than the debut of Kamen Rider Chronicle, I haven't seen a single person purchase this actual game, but it's good to show that there are some people who are still willing to buy into it, of course for the higher calling of saving people's lives. Now in our first fight for this episode, we see that Masamune is not playing around anymore. He wants Hiro to be his enforcer, and as such he has to give him more power than what he's currently capable of. So he equips him with the Tattle Legacy Gashot that we saw in the last episode. The problem is Hiro for some reason can't use it. It's cited several times throughout this episode that he doesn't seem to have the resolve to do it. Now the reason for this I'm not entirely sure. Mainly the idea is that you don't want to detract away from the debut of the final form for the main rider, so as such you don't want to have competing forms in this episode. So I get it, but it just didn't make sense that for no reason whatsoever Hiro doesn't have the resolve to save Saki. Of course he wants to save Saki, he's got that resolve, he wouldn't be doing this otherwise. Now of course everybody on the CR team is still hesitant about Kiriya, everybody's still handling him with great caution since he does seem to have totally bought into what Masamune is selling. Now the thing about it is Masamune is his own problem. As Kronos, he still has that unstoppable pause power. So as such, it's up to Kuroto to come up with a way to combat that. That is found in the Hyper Muteki Gashot. Now it's pretty obvious if you're any sort of gamer or if you've at least played Super Mario Bros. That the power of the Hyper Muteki Gashot is based off the star power that you would have in the original game, wherein you would have temporary invulnerability in order to get through several villains there on the screen. In this case, the problem with Hyper Muteki is that it only lasts 10 seconds. The bigger problem is Kuroto is so full of himself, he laughed through the entire explanation and wasted all of his invincibility. And of course this perfectly sets up Kronos to be able to pause again and take it away from everybody while in paused and run away. Of course, the thing about it is Kuroto is too full of himself, like I said, to be able to realize that this was the problem. He also blames the fact that Emu wasn't able to use it originally. Now this brings up a very interesting thing that we're starting to see here, in that the reason he wasn't able to use the Gashot right away is that he doesn't have the power of Gamer M anymore. The other people in the CR comment on this as well, that Emu hasn't been changing his eye color or personality in the last several fights, so as such, what's the problem here? Now, I've been wondering this for some time now, in that since everything happened before with Paula or the separation therein, then what does that mean for Emu specifically? Did he lose that personality? Did he lose any sort of gaming prowess? It kind of looks like that's what they're trying to tell us here, because it seems that this is a necessity if Emu is going to take on Masamune directly. Unfortunately for Emu, this means that he has to make some sort of a compromise and work directly with Paulad. So they agree to go ahead and try the same move that they tried before, to go ahead and have somebody hide in the Gashakon Bug Visor in order to get past the pause ability. Now, this of course is great for Paulad because he's been wanting to go ahead and take down Kronos, but also his condition, he gets to fight Emu as a result of this. Now, I do potentially see that Paulad might be an end boss aside from game Deus, since they're still playing with how that works with him and Emu. That's still very good characterization, and I want to see where they go with it after this. Now, in order for this plan to work, that means that Paulad has to hide inside the Gashakon Bug Visor that belongs to Poppy. So at least for this episode, we have an excuse for her not to transform, although admittedly, I'm getting a little sick of it. Now, like it was mentioned in the commercial at the beginning of this episode, this event is going to happen at a specific time. Each of these ride players who show up are going to try and combat Cronus directly. Now, it's funny to see that when we have one definitely overweight character, shall we say, try to go ahead and transform into a ride player, we see that we got a regular suit actor with very obvious padding in his stomach. I kind of thought it was a little funny that they couldn't get an equally sized, let's say, suit actor for that, but, you know, whatever. Now, before the fight, we see that Kiriya had made an agreement with Masamune in regards to the outcome of the fight, in that if he could deliver the goods, if he could be the one to take down Eggzade, that he would get to use the Hyper Muteki Gasha. Now, admittedly, for those of us who have seen a lot of stories, we can kind of see where this is coming from a mile away, but it's nice to see the build-up to this, especially given what we know about Kiriya, mainly the Kiriya that we all know and love. And just like clockwork, just when it seems that Eggzade has in fact been taken down by Laser Turbo, he decides to go ahead and cash in. Hey, can I use the Hyper Gasha to go ahead and finish him off? Which of course, Cronus obliges to willingly. The problem here is, thank God, it's a double cross. Yes, we knew it. Kiriya is fine, he's good, he's on the side of everybody else in the CR, everybody relax, he's a good guy again. Now, the extra reason that this is going to work is that just before he got the Hyper Muteki Gasha from Laser, Emu decided to reinfect himself with Palad and his strain of the Bugster virus rather than the plan that he told him he was going to go through with. Mainly, it's the idea that Emu has tactically thought this out and figured the only way I will have enough power to defeat Cronus is if we team up, remembering a conversation that he had with him earlier about the two of them teaming up and becoming invincible. Now, for those of you who don't know Japanese very well, the word Muteki literally means invincible, so that's the tie-in there. And try as he might, Cronus' power to pause is no match for the newly debuted Hyper Muteki Gamer form for Eggzade. Now, as far as the aesthetics of the form, he looks very Saint Seiya-ish with the all gold and the long flowing hair, kind of like the Saint Claws in those series, but I do want to talk a bit about the debuts of other riders. Going all the way back to Kuga till now with Eggzade, the average episode where the final form debuts is episode 33. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. Kuga didn't get his final form until episode 48, 2 episodes before the end of his series. Decade didn't get his final form until episode 21, but admittedly he had a smaller runtime. But if you go back year to Kiva, he got his final form in episode 24, a lot earlier than most other writers. So as far as comparison to other writers go, this lines up with episode 36 for Den-O, where he got liner form in that series, so that's fine for Eggzade to get his final form here in this episode. And I can't speak highly enough of the fact that Emu did not have to die to get his power up. That was another thing I was worried about based off several other years, Forza, Drive, Ghost, where the hero had to essentially die to get their power up. Thankfully they didn't go for that trope, but we might get some death later on down the road, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. And in the end, Hyper Muteki's power is more than enough to defeat Cronus. I like the fact that the Rider Kick looks like an upgraded version of the original Rider Kick we saw in episode 1. When you really break it down, the best final forms are the ones that are logically an advancement of the power that the Rider has in the beginning of the show. Sometimes the power just kind of seems out of nowhere, even more so the design, but here I think it grew on me. The great thing I like about the end of this episode is the fact that now that we have Kiriya back in the CR, he gets to start interacting with everybody that he hasn't gotten the chance to since he's kind of been dead over this last couple of episodes. The funniest part being that he directly assesses that Niko and Taiga don't exactly have a normal doctor-patient relationship. He picked that up right away. Much the same, I do appreciate that there's still some enmity between him and Kuroto-dan. The fact that, hey, I got you, but technically Emu got you using my help, so I'll work with you, but we're not cool. And I love the way how Kuroto-dan doesn't care one bit about it. He's still got that evil smile on his face that, oh, you say you can't forgive me? I never asked to be forgiven. Like, he's really still buying into that. Really, he's one of my favorite characters, next to Kiriya being back. It's so great that he's back. Now, of course, it can't all be fun and games. There is still business to be taken care of. Now, thankfully, going ahead and helping out the CR, working there in the background, Kiriya was able to do more than just fool Cronus. He was actually able to steal the Proto-Gashats that he's been holding on to this whole time. This is a huge boon for the rest of the CR in that now they have the power to try and work things out and get those people back out of Game Over now that they've got those Gashats. Unfortunately, they don't have the one Gashat they need to free Hiro from his servitude to Cronus. Now, I'm wondering what exactly they're going to do with this, because it's episode 36 and we still have a few episodes to go, at least 14 by my count. It's interesting to see that they would get a hold of the Gashats this early. Usually this is something I think they would say for maybe, say, the last 5 episodes, but the fact that they got them this early tells me either 1, something's going to go wrong and they're going to get destroyed, or 2, they're going to lose them again. That's just my guess. And this will all lead into next week's episode where we see Hiro's level 100 power actually debut with Tattle Legacy, since yes, now we've already debuted Hyper Muteki. We'll also actually get to see Pulpy transform again. Thank you, you guys actually listened over there. And more surprisingly than that, it looks like Taiga might be in grave danger. How much danger is he in? I don't know yet. We're still gonna have to figure that out, because I'm thinking about it. When Kiriya's death happened, they didn't broadcast it nearly as hard as they could have. They kept it a secret for people watching that episode that week. So the fact that they're broadcasting this far ahead in the episode preview and in scans that just came out this week that he might die, I think he's just going to get gravely injured, but he's going to be fine. But those were my thoughts on the episode. I want to hear what you guys thought in the comments below, so let's go ahead and talk about this. First and foremost, Hyper Muteki. Did you like the debut? Do you like the way the powers look? Or do you prefer a different final form from a different Kamen Rider series? Secondly, what about Kiriya's face turn? Now that he's on the side of good, do you appreciate that he's back on the side of the CR, or do you wish he'd stayed evil a little longer? And lastly, those ads for Kamen Rider Chronicle, do you think that's something that would have gotten you to buy it, or would you have still stayed away from the game? You tell me. And of course, during the week, you can always talk to me on social media. On Twitter, I'm at JoshKnight1st. This has been episode 36 of Exade Replay for episode 36 of the series, Perfect Invincible Gamer. I'm Josh Knight the First. I'll see you guys again next week.